Good morning, Wellspring. We're all in our places with bright, shiny faces. My name is Judy Bethman, and I'm part of your Sunday, October 6th, 2024 service team. Okay, early birds meet Sunday mornings at 9:30 via Zoom. The link is in the weekly email and on the website. Today, our speaker is Dr. Edward. Next week, Reverend Sandy will speak. On the 20th, Dr. Robles will speak. And on the 27th, Jean Geringer. This week, Lunch Bunch will meet this Wednesday, October 9th, at Cracker Barrel. Also, Wednesday night, October 9th at 6:30 via Zoom, the Board of Trustees will meet. Check with Edward for the Zoom coordinates. We invite everybody in the congregation to attend the Zoom meeting as we do the business for our beloved Wellspring. The Thursday evening group continues to meet at 7 o'clock here in the social hall or on Zoom. Get coordinates from Cleona or Edward. The labyrinth is slowly coming along. Thank you for those who've contributed your rocks. Please help in finding more rocks. They need to be about 6 inches, and we put them under the parallel. And we know we are traveling a rocky road to get this done, but I think we can handle it, and eventually it will happen. And lastly, our prayer team meets ready to serve and support you. Please submit a request via our webpage or give it to Edward. They meet virtually every Tuesday afternoon. Consider quietly that you sit and commune with them. This quiet space is important. It's an important part of your day, whether you realize it or not. So consider to do that at 4:15 while they are praying and you are praying. We know we are one in spirit, and the energy of prayer knows no limits. As we breathe in and exhale, we are inviting spirit to consume our bodies and our minds. Let's all breathe in and exhale. And as we exhale, all the concerns of the past week are floating away. The third inhalation, hold. And exhale in thankfulness that we are all connected. We are all one in spirit, and spirit permeates this center, this state, this nation, this globe, this universe. Let us rejoice in that fact and know that it is true. It always has been true and always will be true. For this we give great, great thanks. And so it is. Okay, it's a new month. We have a new song of joy. If you're able, please stand. We're going to sing Use Me. Is your mic on?
This is an old favorite, so let her rip. Use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. I used to think God was the sun, God is the sun, but so much more than the earth and the sea. But all of creation, God is creator, all in all, needing us to shine its light as me, as you use me. Oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. Command my hands, what must they do? Command my life, it's here for you. God is the love that heals all creation. God is creator, makes all things new. God needs us to shine its light as me, as you use me. Oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. And God needs us to shine its light. God needs us to shine its light. God needs us to shine its light as me, as you, so use me. Oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide and show me all that I must do. Show me all that I must do. Show me all that I must do. And that worked.
Thank you. It's been over 2 years since we've sung that song. I went into the archives to dig it up. Okay, let us read our vision, mission, and affirmation. Our vision: to elevate spiritual consciousness in our world. Our mission: to support individual spiritual quests through celebration, study, counsel, loving fellowship, and service. Our affirmation: I know that I am God in expression, and that every circumstance I find myself in is right for me. God's harmony fills my every experience, and so it is. And that's by Ernest Holmes. All right, now it's time for our special music, and I'm welcoming back Teresa Tudori.
Yeah, no, it is. Okay. 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 Ugh. I was going to sing a song that's quite funny, but it's very offensive. So I thought I better not do it. It could be offensive, but it's meant to be. No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Yeah, it's meant to be an understanding. Politically, we're all at each other's throats, and it's hurting us because we're all Americans and we have much, much more in common than we don't. But it's a Machiavellian conceit, sort of, to keep the peasants at each other's throats so that we don't look at what really might be going on. So I hope you'll understand. I hope that I convey to you that this is about healing, bringing people together. So when you hear this, you can imagine that a right-wing person is singing it or a left-wing person is singing it. And at the end, I hope there's a little, there's a little denouement. Okay. And the title of the song is the first line. Where did all these horrible people come from? What spooky sci-fi movie is coming true? Where hateful aliens possess our loved ones, replacing the kind folks we thought we knew. Where did all these horrible people come from? What sperm bank did they rob to get the strain that's led to this dreadful mutation of heartless humans born without a brain? Where are we going to go? What are we going to do? They're stealing the whole show. They're after me and you. Quick, pretend you're stupid. They'll think you are their own. The earth is flat. If you say that, they might leave you alone. Where did all these horrible people come from? What lab leak brought this virus to our shore? A U-Haul is unloading at the corner. Are neo-Nazi fascist commies moving in next door? Where are we going to go? What are we going to do? They're stealing the whole show. They're after me and you. Does everyone have ammo? Does everyone have guns? The nightly news is worse than blues. It's giving me the runs. Where did all these horrible people come from? And dear Lord, what they're doing to my soul. I'm succumbing to a numbing paranoia and behaving like a raving rectal hole. Where are we going to go? What are we going to do? They're stealing the whole show. They're after me and you. Oh, I know we must be patient. I know we must be strong. If we're to save our nation, we've got to get along with all of these horrible, horrible people. I love you even though I am right.
How do you follow that? Only, 29 days to the... All right. Well, this morning's reading is taken from 365 Days of Science of Mind. And this is for April 3rd. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. If we make every day a day of praise and thanksgiving, a day in which we recognize the divine bounty and the eternal goodness, and if we live today as though God were the only presence and the only power there is, we would not have to worry about tomorrow. We are all human. We all have made mistakes. The starting point for creating a better future for ourselves is to deliberately free our minds from the mistakes of yesterday and feel that they need no longer be held against us. They need no longer to be a liability. Too often our minds are so burdened because of the mistakes we have made that we do not take time to forgive ourselves and others and to start over again. And so it is wise to occasionally review the past and try to find out just what we have been thinking and doing to create this burden in our minds. We cannot go back over the past and relive it. We cannot make adjustments to the past. We have to make them in the present. It is not going to do us any good to sit around and cry over the past and bemoan our fate, because in the very day in which we are living, we are creating our tomorrows, which will become monotonous repetitions of our yesterdays. And so it is. All right. Well, it gives me pleasure to bring Dr. Edward up. Are you mic'd, or are you going to use this? He doesn't know what he's doing, which doesn't bode well for the talk. You're going to use this, he says.
Oh, I use that.
He's going to use that, he says.
Well, all right. Is my face red still? I'm reminded of, remember Bob Coombs? He used to get up here and he'd sit over there and he'd say, well, I'm not sure Reverend Sam is going to like this. But, and then he'd start playing some music, right? You remember that. So, Teresa and I were having a conversation before when she was talking about doing that. And one of the things she mentioned, and I want to just reiterate or remind us of the conversation we had, which is because, I believe in pre-incarnation, right? That we are here, these are your words as well as what I believe, we're here, right now, with a purpose, on purpose. It's not an accident. So what is our purpose, right? Well, number one, we're light bearers. And you may see there's a lot of chaos and you know what out there. But we have a job to do. We have a vocation of being light bearers. And when, as they say, when the whole world is losing their heads, let's try not to lose ours. And the answer is love. Love. Anyway, I wanted to mention, because it had been brought up, is that second Sunday in November is what we call Birthday Sunday. It's a celebration of the beginning of Wellspring. And one of the things we do on that Sunday, for those who are interested, is we have an initiation of new members, or at least we allow them to sign the book, and we hardly do anything weird, so to say. So if you've been considering joining Wellspring, the Wellspring family, and make a more official way, please let me or Judy know so that we'll know how big to set the table. So anyway, and there'll be a more formal announcement as we go along. But I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that you were invited to sign the register at Wellspring that Sunday. So my talk today is on self-forgiveness. And I say it's the key to transformation. So we're going to talk a little bit about forgiveness in the more general sense, and then we're going to talk about self-forgiveness and what it might be able to do for us. So you've all heard of the golden rule. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. And the second is love your neighbor as yourself. There's no commandment greater than these. Or as Matthew says in his words, in everything do unto others what you would have them do to you. Or Luke says, same about, do to others as you would have them do to you. And this is, shall we say, the fundamental ethical principle that summarizes a Christian's duty to their neighbor. And I'm only going to say that I like, of course, because I made it up, my interpretation of the second of those. And that is, love yourself so you can love your neighbor. And that's where this whole idea of self-forgiveness comes from. So first we're going to take a little trip around forgiving others. And Matthew said, in Matthew he says, then Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times? And you all know the answer. I tell you, not 7 times, but 7 times 70 times, or something along those lines. And there are numerous other places that tell us, I'll put it this way, how to get God's forgiveness, right? And when you stand praying, if you hold anything against anyone, forgive them, so that your Father in heaven may forgive you your sins. And I'm reading quotes from the Bible. We have a different philosophy about certain parts of this, but it serves a point. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Or Ephesians says, be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as Christ God forgave you. So it seems to me like forgiveness is a pretty big deal in our religious culture and upbringing. And many of us have brought up in a Christian faith of some sort, and we've had this kind of pounded into our brains. You know, that's in the file cabinet back there, and whenever the word comes up, forgiveness, automatically you go to the file drawer and you pull it out and you say, yes, I know all about forgiveness, right? So in the way it's been written, and I've read it, it says, I feel kind of like it's almost disempowering. By that I mean it's always dependent on something else. You know, either this greater being or our actions to somebody else. You know, forgiveness is kind of this rare gem that somehow we have to do all sorts of stuff to get. So my belief is that equally, or at least possibly even more important, is that we learn to forgive ourselves. Learning to forgive our neighbors is great, but learning to forgive ourselves is transformative. And obviously, to me, I believe we have the ability to forgive ourselves. But how often do we make it a practice? I think that self-forgiveness is not particularly encouraged culturally. You know, we're taught to be selfless rather than selfish, or what might be appearing to be selfish to an outside observer. So most of us have had to learn, and sometimes it's been a struggle, to take care of ourselves first. One of the places that you might remember if you've ever flown in an airplane where you're encouraged to take care of yourself first is, in case the oxygen or the cabin loses pressurization, an oxygen mask will fall out from the thing in front of you. And if you're traveling with small children, put your mask on before you put theirs on, right? Save yourself so you can save someone else, so to speak. So why do you think there's so many books and articles on self-care? Well, because it's not something we're either taught to do or that we naturally tend to do. We talk about the self-sacrificing mother who, does all these things for the children or the family. And, at the end of the day, they're kind of feeling like, what about me? Where do I fit in all this? I'm always taking care of other people. And, we do have these natural caregiving tendencies on many of us. But we need to work at it to take care of ourselves. Some people might say that this whole idea of self-forgiveness could be spiritual bypass. And it might seem so. How might it seem to be a spiritual bypass? Well, how about someone who's abusive to another or the playground bully? Right? Says, well, just forgive yourself. Right? So I would say, do you think they can really believe it when they say, oh, it doesn't matter, parenthetically, I can do whatever I want because I just forgive myself, or because God forgives me, right? I mean, I don't quite go that far. So I say that eventually I think they will face the law of cause and effect. Lovingly, of course. I mean, you can laugh about that, but in a sense, there is nothing. The law of cause and effect is not a law of retribution. There we go. It's really out of love. I mean, why do I say that? Well, if you're this gunky person or you have these gunky characteristics, way back when we were born souls, we knew that our job was to get back to that place, that oneness, the godness. And all these other things that have been in our way are being removed out of love so that we can get back to that place, get back to the oneness. So that's why I say it's out of love. It's like karma is out of love. It's not retribution. It's not some crazy guy up in the clouds with a auto harp and angels around, and you know how it goes. It's really someone that is something. It's not even necessarily a person saying, come, my beloved. Let's do what we can so that we can be back together. So speaking of spiritual bypass, another one might say, well, there's no sin. What do I have to forgive myself about? I read these books, so forth. It says I shouldn't feel guilty, what have you. And I'm just going to say that if someone is experiencing maybe that aversion to self-forgiveness, that possibly that person is a little too frightened to look at their dark side. So it's kind of like I was talking earlier. about come closer. You know, they talk about the train, or the light at the end of the tunnel, you know, and the joke is it's really a train, right? No, the light at the end of the tunnel is always love. It's always love. So I'm going to read a little bit of Holmes, because as you read some Holmes, you're going to hear a little bit more about here. He says, the person who is to succeed will never let his mind dwell on past mistakes. He will forgive the past in his life and in the lives of other people. If he makes a mistake, he will at once forgive it. He will know that so long as he desires any good, there is nowhere in the universe anything that opposes him. God does not damn anyone or anything. Human damns everyone and everything. Okay, so why don't we just immediately forgive ourselves? I mean, we have difficulty with it. Read it right there. Well, this is an intellectual knowing, but it's not a feeling. We may know we're forgiven, but we don't feel that we're forgiven. And some more from Living the Science of Mind this time. We all are human beings, and we all have made mistakes. We all carry an unconscious burden of guilt, and we all need a sense of being forgiven. Skipping forward. Much of our inability to forgive others comes from a deep-seated inferiority complex. Often our antagonistic attitude toward others rises from a need within our own minds to be relieved of our unconscious sense of self-condemnation, as though we have such a burden of guilt within our minds that we can hardly bear it. And so we project it to others just for the relief it gives ourselves. That's pretty heavy. And now, reading still from Holmes, and now we are putting the proposition in the only place where it can be handled, within ourselves. For when there is nothing in us that would condemn others, then there would be no condemnation left toward either the self or others. It is then and only then that we unblock the stream of life which so freely flows to all and through all when we permit it. That goes back to talking about our blockages, preventing the flow of energy. And this is a life-giving energy, right? So there's a couple of statements from the Course in Miracles, and I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit, and I think one of them is, nothing is what it seems to be, right? And things only have the meaning we give to them. So this is not Course in Miracles now. It's my expression that it's always about us, right? You know, it's not a sense of narcissism. It's a truth. It's us. If we deal with our own perceived flaws, aka what Holmes was talking about, we have less need to judge or criticize others. And I say this doesn't happen by accident. We have to consciously do it, and we have to pay some attention to it. In Holmes, we talk about, we usually abbreviate it, change your thinking, change your life. Right? So if you change your thinking, you will change your life. And I want to turn that around. Change your life by changing your thinking. Not much of a turnaround. But we know that our life is a manifestation of our thoughts. Our external universe is a projection of our internal environment. You know, many of us have watched the movie The Secret or read the book, and you talk about, you mention that to someone, they say, oh yeah, I can manifest a parking lot in the grocery store parking, or a parking space in the grocery store parking lot, or I can make the light that's red turn green before I get there. All these kinds of things that we do. But we forget that we're also creating with our sub or unconscious mind. And all those thoughts are creating. So if our thoughts are from the world of opinion, then our life will be a reflection of those opinions. And here I use opinion to represent any expression or belief that is not based in truth. So when we observe our life as a representation of our beliefs, we can become students of ourselves, you might say. And if we approach this course of study with a sense of curiosity, it is easier to observe the activities and experiences we're having without judgment. So you've heard me mention Byron Katie many times in the past. And you've heard me talk about her exercise, which is called Judge Your Neighbor. Remember that? All right, so let's just make a little change here. It's called Judge Yourself. If you have, it's Halloween coming up, but if you do this before it gets scary. What if you truly and honestly examined all of your self-judgments and wrote it down? I mean, that's part of the exercise, right? For starters, you might, get a blank sheet of paper and write down, what I truly dislike about myself is, fill in the blank. What I feel guilty about is, fill in the blank. What turns me off about myself is, fill in the blank. The very worst thing I've ever done is, fill in the blank. I really hate it when I do blank. Well, of course, you're not going to stop there, right? What do you want to do with all these failings, this self-judgment, guilt, disgust, and perhaps even hatred? Well, I'm not a psychotherapist, but my suggestion is that you take your list one at a time, but as if you were examining someone else's list or their behaviors. Then, from a feeling of curiosity and compassion, ask yourself, I wonder why they would do that? What was or might have been going on for them when they did that? And answers might range from something as simple as, they were hungry, or they were tired, or they were confused, or they just didn't know any other way to respond based on their training or their past experiences or their wisdom at the time. There's still somebody else we're talking about, right? So if you did that, don't you think you could find it in your heart to forgive that person? I mean, we have incredible ability to forgive, feel compassion for others. And what I'd say about this exercise is you don't have to worry about where you're going to get the answers, because all that information that you need to answer these questions are where? Inside. We know all the answers to those questions. So if you stuck with this so far, here's another step. And for the greatest effect, this should be said out loud. So take one of these sections and say at least 3 times. You'll know if it takes more than that. Say, I forgive you. And you'll know when you feel the energy shift that you have forgiven that. At that point, switch over, of course. I forgive myself. Out loud. And again, when you truly get to that point, you will feel the energy shift in your body. Another way you might do something would be to use the Ho'oponopono prayer, which is, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And again, you only have to do it until you feel the energy shift. All right, so this sounds like a lot of tough stuff to do. So what do we get? What's the incentive to let go of some of these hang-ups and blockages? Sometimes from our very early life, stuff we learned as a child. Well, guess what? You get free use of all the energy that was tied up, either defending that position or stuffing down those feelings. Ka-ching. That might actually be worth something. Think of what you could do with the bonus, the jackpot. You can do an awful lot with all that newfound energy. So from some of Quimby's teachings, this is really, Quimby is the father of New Thought in the United States, basically. And Ernest Holmes learned, the Dressers learned, Emma Curtis Hodkins learned from him. At any rate, he says, spiritual matter is directly responsive to thought and subconsciously embodies in the flesh the fears, beliefs, hopes, errors, and joys of the mind. And he was a physical healer as well as what we might call a mental healer. So we know that releasing the blocks in our energy flow could lead to a better life, more health. So I wanted to read something. We're reading this book, Who Dies in Early Birds. And so just today, at the very beginning of the reading, and I'm jumping right to the middle of a paragraph, he's talking about people who dealing with themselves, their life, and their death. He says that they had never fully met themselves in life or dealt with death, and here's part of it, because they had always been encouraged to withdraw from anything that was unpleasant. The unpleasant had always acted as their jailer. So, that's the thing you get. Get to get rid of the jailer. So I want to finish by this is an exercise from Living the Science of Mind. And so you might just settle into your quietness. It says, I forgive myself. I forgive everyone else. The past is gone. It need no longer affect me. I know that God holds nothing against me, and if I have done anything to hurt others, or they have done anything to hurt me, I now forgive myself and them. Therefore, I am conscious that I have complete clearance. There is no judgment, no condemnation. And with that I say, and so it is. So we'll have a little prayer, and then you can, it's okay. It's all good. So let me just bring in the energy for everyone here. Everyone on this call, everyone who listens to this later. You are part of the divine. There's no place where you can go to avoid being part of the divine. There's no place in the universe that is not infused by that sense of oneness. In the space within our atoms, that oneness exists. the space within the atoms of the chairs and the tables and the buildings. God exists. In the space within the atoms in our bodies, God exists. In the space between our experiences, God exists. In the midst of divisiveness, hatred, war, God exists. We accept our mission to be lights for the world. We know that any time we choose, we can be channels for that light to all around us, to our friends and family who may be suffering, may be experiencing something that seems unlike godliness right now. We can be channels for light. We can see them as we do now, surrounded with this beautiful, healing light. That sense of oneness, that compassion, that love that is always there, always working in our lives. So we give great thanks that we understand how this works. We give thanks that we are a part of it, that we can use it to assist, help others, and more than anything, to help ourselves. To be more expressive of that magnificent, creative being that we've always been. So we know that we take this with us as we leave today, and it operates in and through us no matter where we are. And we know that we don't have to be in charge. We can just allow this goodness to happen. And so it is. Now we have Teresa.
Thank you so much. It was so great. There are folks who know the wisdom of the highway, where the heart and mind aligned to show the way. There are people you will meet who might offer you a seat on the bus, on the train. Though you may not know exactly where you're going, you'll discern the moment that you have arrived. There'll be friends waiting there who have also paid the fare and survived through the power of love, the power of love, and it flows through everything and everyone. After coming through the dark, Listen for the lark when she sings her welcome song to the dawn. Sing along. I would like to take this moment to thank you, even those whose face and names I can't recall. You have helped me all along with your visions and your songs. And to those who came, it seemed, just to hurt me, you brought a lesson I needed to learn. Life is like that, don't you know? If we're to see a lovely glow, some things must burn. Burn in the power of love, the power of love, and it flows through everything and everyone. After coming through the dark, listen to the lark as she sings her welcome song to the dawn. Sing along as she sings her welcome song. Sing along when she sings to the dawn. Sing along.
Thank you so much, Teresa. The power of love. And now, through the power of love, it's time for our tithes and our offerings. Thank you, Sharon. As we acknowledge and receive our virtual and in-person gifts, we give great thanks for the offerings already given and those we'll be receiving, because we know that giving and receiving are both part of the one flow. We affirm that we are also part of that flow. We bless these gifts and know that they are multiplied throughout our community. Thank you, Sharon. All right, there are a number of folks who have contributed to the production of the service. We're grateful. Tech team, Edward, Teresa, Barry, we thank you. And we thank you in Zoomland for joining us, and here, you folks in the sanctuary. Stay around in the Zoom meeting after the service to visit, or join us in the social hall. Please stand with, if you are able, and read the benediction, and followed by our congregational song. Spirit in the midst of us is mighty. Joy, peace, and eternal life are our true nature and flow through us into the world. And so it is.